Hi everyone, in this video we're going to talk a little bit more about formatting text with printf. The basic syntax for printf is going to be of this form, system.out.printf, and then in quotes whatever string you want to format and then the parameters. So we'll break this down a little bit more, but this slide just gives you the overview of everything. And basically it allows you to format a string to have a particular structure or format that you want. The placeholders that we have are associated to different types that we have in Java. So %d for integer, %f for a real number or float, %s for string, and %c for char. Before I talk about printf specifically, I do just want to talk about print. System.out has a print method which outputs or displays to your console any primitive data type, a string, or any object, which is super important to Java, but for right now, most of our examples will be on primitive data types and strings. For example, if you have int a is equal to 100, you can do system.out.print, and then in quotes, you need quotes, you can do a equals to print the string. So the double quotes indicate that it's a string. I can just put a system.out.print, and that will print an int. I can also do special characters. For example, \t is a tab character. And another thing that I can do is I can use various classes in Java and go directly to printing those out. So math.sqrt of 2 will print out. And so I do recommend you create a small Java class and then try typing out these individual lines, and you should see on your console it prints out a is equal to 100, and then there should be a tab space, which is clear space, and then square root of 2 is equal to 1.14 something. The next part of system.out that I want to talk about is println. Println is like print, but after printing a value, it also outputs a new line character to move to the start of the next line. As before, it can output any primitive type, a string, or any object. Let's look at an example. Here I have system.out.print a equals, and then system.out.println, which will print a, but after a, it will create a new line, system.out.println, and if you just put empty parentheses, it'll print an empty line. And of course, you can also do arithmetic inside your println statements. And so you'll get something like this output. I recommend trying it out. A is equal to 100, and then a new line after a is equal to 100, and then this empty line, and then 1.0 divided by 3.0, which is 0.3, etc. Now, if you want to print several values at once, if that first value is a string, you can join the other values using plus. So you can do system.out.println, and then in quotes, a equals, and then afterwards put a plus a. This is the same as doing system.out.print a equals and system.out.println just a by itself. And so your output should look the same. So you can see how there's multiple ways to do the same thing. Let's look at an example that combines some of the things that we've talked about. System.out.println, I'm a string, and then it has a plus, and then it says again. So that's using the plus symbol to concatenate different strings together. System.out.print apple, and then notice it's print, so it's not going to create a new line. And then system.out.print, and then banana. This is a print, but afterwards I have \n. And then at the very end, I have system.out.print grape. And this is going to print out I'm a string again, and then on a new line, apple, banana, but it's all together, and then on a new line, grape. I want to point out a common error that people make when using println when they want to concatenate strings together. They will often use just a comma, and that does not allow you to concatenate strings. So here I have double angle, which is some math function, and double x, which is another math function. And so when I do a println, it should not be a comma here, but I have to do plus angle plus if I want to print out the angle. And similarly here. Now, we also have something called printf, which is what this video is really about, which allows you to format strings a little bit more nicely and with greater flexibility than you can with println. So sometimes using println is a little bit tricky. For example, here I want to combine a total and print out the this final amount that includes tax. This is fine, but if I want to format the string in a certain way, println is not really the best way to do this. Now with printf, we can actually say that I exactly want the total to have this format, which is %8.2f. And that way, the format that I get is a float that uses 8 characters total, but it has 2 decimal digits. And so the total is 10,10700.00. All right, this is what println happened to print out in the previous example that I had, but now I'm giving it a very specific control on how I want it to look. And this way I can modify it if I wanted it to look different. So let's talk a little bit about the printf syntax. It's just going to be system.out.printf and then the string that you want to format and then your arguments for that string in order. If you want to have arguments, which you don't necessarily do. Format string can contain both text and format codes. And the values that are arg1, arg2, and so on are substituted for the format codes in order. For example, let's say I have int x is equal to 100 and y is equal to 225. Then I can do system.out.printf. The sum of %d and %d is %60. So %d is the format code to output an int or long value, and %6d means to output an integer using exactly 6 digits or spaces. And you'll notice here how it's %d, and %6d. So I have 3 of these arguments here, arg1, arg2, and arg3, and it's x, y, and x plus y. A little bit more example with the printf syntax. Let's say I want to print the average. So I say int x is equal to 100, y is equal to 90, and I'm going to do system.out.printf. The average of %d and %d is 6.2f and then a new line. So now the %6.2f means to use a floating point, which uses has a width of 6 and uses 2 decimal digits. So if you work this out, and I recommend typing this up to make sure this code actually compiles for you, you should get something that looks like the average of 190 is 95.00. So the first %d is that 100, which is x. And then you'll notice here that I have extra spaces outside of the 95 because I asked for that width to have a certain format. Let's go over the 4 common printf formats that we are going to see in this class. %d stands for decimal integers, so you can do %d, and then you can also specify a width with a number, so %60 to say that it's 6 spaces wide. %f, which is fixed point, floating point, so you can use %f, and then you can specify a width with that number, and then a point something to indicate how many decimal places. So %10.4f means it's going to be 10 wide, and it's going to use 4 decimal points afterwards. %s for a string, %c for a character. Let's look at an example. Let's say I have a string owner, and this person's name is Taksin Shinawat. Their int account number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and their balance is how many zeros is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I guess 4 billion. And you can do a system.out.printf to say, let's have the account, which is 6 wide long, of the int, the owner, specify what their name should look like, and then how you want their balance to be written out. And so you should see something like this to get that formatting the way that you want it to. Now, there's also something called string.format, which allows you to save strings as variables ahead of time before printing them out, which is sometimes a little bit more convenient. For example, let's say I want to describe a bank account. I have the name, which is John Doe, the account ID, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a double balance, 123.456. Now, instead of just printing this out directly like I did for Taksin Shinawat on the previous slide, I could say string result, string is equal to string.format, account, and then whatever formatting I want set up like that with the args in order. And now I can actually print or return this amount. And in the end, if you do a system.out.print on just results, you will get the formatting the way that you expect. All right. And one thing I just wanted to point out, although it's appeared in some of the examples, is a good question is, when you use the format string placeholders, can you repeat the same placeholder, like using %d twice? Take a moment and think about the previous examples we've seen and see whether that happened. Okay, good. So it is possible because what matters is order. Here's an example. Let's say I have just a main class. I'm going to set int x is equal to 5, y is equal to 10, and then I'm going to repeat that same placeholder, %d, and the values are %d and %d, x and y. Since it's x comma y, the first %d will go with x, and the second %d will go with y. All right, so that's all I have for you to explain printf in a little bit more detail, and also println and what's going on. If you have any further questions, definitely ask me, and let's figure out how to do awesome string formatting together. Thanks for watching.